So do you have any memorable stories from your time on the Tornado?
A lot of memorable stories, good and bad, for sure. I think some of the more amusing stories that I could probably share are times where I've been absolutely terrified that something really bad was happening with the Tornado. It turns out nothing bad was happening at all. So a good example of that would be water ingress into the cockpit. So a particular sortie springs to mind. It was an evening sortie out in Cyprus, and for whatever reason a bigger thunderstorm had moved through that afternoon. A lot of rain had entered the canopy, which unfortunately had been left up. It wasn't sealed with the normal sealing stuff that we'd expect. As a result, water got into the engine control panel and all the switches, and the guys had done their best to clean it all away, but obviously were unaware of a lot of the water that had come down below. I obviously strapped in, go in about a couple of hours later, and as we took off, I had a right-hand TBT and all the indications. Basically the right-hand engine was flaming out. All the engine gauges were spiking up beyond their normal operating temperatures, and it looked to me like the engines were winding down, and I was having at least one, if not a double engine failure on takeoff, which was kind of the worst case scenario. And again, it wasn't during the roll, so I couldn't abort. It was just post rotate, so I was committed to getting airborne at that point, and all the indications and all the warning panel were lighting up as if we'd had a full double engine failure. It took a couple of seconds to reassess, and we managed to limp airborne and just about get away. I didn't immediately shut down the engine because I could still feel there was a fair bit of residual thrust, and we managed to get the aircraft out over the sea and position kind of wide downwind past the cliffs just to the south of Cyprus, just to kind of work out what was going on. We realised that actually, even though the indications were telling us something was very seriously wrong with the aircraft, it certainly felt like we were okay and that we could continue flying the aircraft. So after a very short sort of 30-45 seconds or so, me and my weapon system operator decided that obviously we're going to put the aircraft back on the ground again as soon as possible, because we weren't really sure what was going on, and we turned downwind and managed to get back on the deck a few minutes later. What transpired is that the water aforementioned had got into the engine control panel and had put the aircraft into an engine test state, where it was going through its full test basically to check the TBT was in a serviceable condition, which is the turbine gas temperature basically at the back end of the aircraft. So the aircraft was basically thought it was in like an engine test mode while it was flying, which was giving me all these spurious captions. Thankfully, despite sounding quite excited on the radio, we didn't actually shut the aircraft down, and when we landed, I got a fair bit of banter later from the engineers saying, "There's only a bit of water, mate, it's fine." And I was saying, at the time it did not feel fine for sure. So that's one of the more dramatic stories. And then in terms of the more just personal achievement stories, just flying the last few missions on Tornado was an incredible achievement, and being the last guy to get trained up through the training system, and then taking the jets after their last combat mission back from Cyprus to the UK was an incredible experience. And I also had the honour of doing the finale fly past, so the 3-ship that went around all the different air bases that Tornado was affiliated with over the years. Being part of that, despite my kind of junior stature at the time, was just an awesome privilege to be part of. So yeah, lots of good memories.